The invitation came on a Tuesday, slipped under my apartment door like it was nothing. A cream-colored envelope with my name written in my mother's handwriting. That careful, deliberate cursive she only uses when she wants something to look important. I stood in my hallway in my socks holding it, already knowing whatever was inside wasn't going to be good. It was a wedding invitation, my brother Nathan's wedding. Formal, printed, the kind you order from a stationery boutique. Save the date had been 6 months ago. The actual invitation was now 3 weeks before the ceremony. 3 weeks. I'd been his sister for 31 years and I got 3 weeks' notice. I set it on my kitchen counter and made coffee and tried to talk myself out of what I already knew this meant. Maybe the printer was delayed. Maybe there was a miscommunication. Maybe my sister-in-law Courtney had just been overwhelmed with planning. I am very good at giving people the benefit of the doubt. I have had a lot of practice. I should explain something about my family before I go any further because none of what happened at that wedding makes sense without it. My parents built their identity around achievement, not the quiet internal kind, the visible, provable, bring it to Thanksgiving kind. My brother Nathan went to law school, passed the bar on his first attempt, and now works at a firm in downtown Chicago where the partners have their names on the door. My younger sister Priya got her MBA at Northwestern and married a cardiologist named Scott, who my mother introduces at every opportunity as a heart surgeon, even though he's actually an interventional cardiologist and those are different things, but the distinction has never mattered to her. What matters is that it sounds impressive at brunch. And then there's me. I left college after my sophomore year, not because I failed out. I had a 3.7 GPA, and I'd been taking extra courses on weekends because I couldn't stop learning. I left because a small software company in Austin offered me a contract to build out their inventory management system, and the money they offered was more than my father made in a year, and I knew that if I said no, I would spend the rest of my life wondering, so I said yes. I told my parents. My father said I was throwing my life away. My mother cried. Nathan told me I was being impulsive and that I clearly didn't understand how the real world worked. That was 11 years ago. What my family knows about my life now: I work in tech. I live alone in a one-bedroom in Lincoln Park. I drive a used Honda Civic. I wear the same rotation of jeans and plain sweaters. And I have never, in 11 years, corrected any assumption they've made about me. What my family does not know: I own 43% of a cloud infrastructure company called Lumen Systems that was valued at $1.8 billion in our last funding round. I have been quietly buying commercial real estate in the Chicago metro area for 6 years through a holding company. I have a financial advisor, an estate attorney, and a personal assistant who books my travel under a different name because I got tired of being recognized at airports. I have given more money to children's hospitals in Illinois than most people make in a lifetime, and I have done it anonymously, every single time, because I genuinely do not care about credit. I care about doing the work. I always have. That's the part my family never understood about me. They thought I was directionless because I didn't perform ambition the way they recognized it. So when the invitation arrived 3 weeks before Nathan's wedding, I was not naive about what it meant. I was an afterthought. I was the sister they had to invite because not inviting me would cause a scene, but not a sister they were proud to seat at the head table. I RSVP'd yes. I bought a simple navy dress. I showed up. The venue was the Glenview Grand, a hotel and event space about 40 minutes north of the city. Exposed brick, high ceilings, the kind of place that photographs beautifully and charges accordingly. I arrived early because I'm always early, parked in the guest lot and walked into the lobby feeling the particular kind of calm that comes from already knowing something no one else in the room has figured out yet. My mother found me within 4 minutes of my arrival. "You came," she said, which is not actually a greeting. It's an observation shaped like one. "Of course I came," I said. "He's my brother." She looked at my dress. Not long, just a flicker. "Long enough." "You look fine," she said, which in her language means you should have tried harder. My father shook my hand. He shakes my hand at family events. I stopped trying to understand this years ago. Nathan was across the room with Scott and two men I didn't recognize, probably from the firm. He saw me, gave a small wave, and turned back to his conversation. Courtney was in a bridal suite somewhere getting photographed. I found my table assignment. Table 11, near the back, next to the bar, which would have been strategically ideal if I drank, and I sat down and waited. Priya found me during cocktail hour. She'd gotten her hair done and was wearing a dress that probably cost 4 times what mine did, and she had the specific energy of someone who has been waiting all day to say something. "Mom said you're still at the same company," she said. "More or less," I said. "Are they doing okay? I heard the tech sector has been rough." "We're doing fine. Scott's practice is expanding. They're opening a second location in Naperville." She said this the way people announce lottery wins. "It's been incredible. He works so hard." "That's great," I said, and I meant it actually. Scott is a decent person. He can't help what he married into. "You should think about getting back into school," Priya said. "It's not too late. A lot of programs are designed for working professionals now. I could ask around." I looked at her. I thought about the 11 patents currently registered in my name. I thought about the keynote I'd given in San Francisco 8 months ago to an audience of 2,000 engineers. I thought about the email sitting in my inbox from a senator's office asking if I'd consult on an infrastructure bill. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll give Courtney that. She has excellent taste. White florals, soft lighting, a string quartet that played something I didn't recognize but should have. Nathan cried when she walked down the aisle. I found that genuinely touching. Whatever else is true about my brother, he loves his wife, and that's not nothing. The reception was where things started to unravel. I was at my table with 2 of Nathan's colleagues from the firm, a college friend of Courtney's named Shannon, and Shannon's husband whose name I immediately forgot. They were pleasant people. We talked about Chicago winters and whether deep dish pizza counts as pizza and what streaming shows were worth watching. Normal reception conversation. I was fine. Then my mother came to the table. She didn't sit down. She stood at the edge of it with a champagne glass in her hand, and the smile she wears when she's about to say something she's been rehearsing. "I just wanted to say," she said, loud enough that the whole table could hear, "how proud we are of Nathan and Courtney. It's so wonderful to see a child really build something, a real career, a real life." She looked at me when she said build something. Not a long look, just long enough. "Some of us take longer to find our path," she added. "That's okay too." Shannon made a small, awkward sound. Nathan's colleague suddenly needed to refill his drink. I smiled. "Absolutely," I said. My mother patted my hand and went back to the head table. I sat with that for a moment. 11 years, 43% of $1 billion company. Anonymous donations, buildings with my holding company's name on the deed. A team of 57 people whose salaries I sign off on. And I was the one who hadn't found her path yet. I could have let it go. I was planning to let it go. I had let it go approximately 400 times before this, and I would have let it go again. But then Courtney's father found me. His name is Richard, and he's the kind of man who fills a room by deciding he owns it. He runs a regional insurance brokerage, drives a Cadillac, and has an opinion about everything that he shares without being asked. He'd had, by my estimate, 3 glasses of scotch before dinner was even served. He pulled a chair up next to mine without asking if it was available and said, "You're Nathan's sister, the one who didn't finish school." "I am," I said. "What do you do for work?" "Software," I said. "Tech infrastructure mostly." He nodded the way people nod when they've already decided the answer isn't interesting. "Good field for people who are good at that kind of thing," he said. "Not everyone is. Nothing wrong with finding something stable. A nice steady job." He glanced around the room. "Must be hard though. Watching your brother and sister really succeed. Real achievements. Tangible things." I thought about the deed to the building we were currently sitting in. I know how that sounds. But I need you to understand, the Glenview Grands event space is owned by a hospitality real estate trust. That trust is a subsidiary of a larger holding company. That holding company has multiple investors, and I am the majority stakeholder. I had attended dozens of events at this venue over the years. I knew the general manager by first name. I had approved the renovation of the East Wing 2 years ago. The marble in the lobby that everyone kept complimenting in their Instagram posts? I signed off on that. I said none of this to Richard. I said, "You might be surprised." He laughed not unkindly, just the laugh of a man who thinks he already understands the shape of the world. "Maybe so," he said, and went to find his wife. I made it through dinner. I made it through the toasts, which did not include me, though Nathan thanked the whole family in a general sweep of his arm that technically covered my direction. I made it through the first dance, and the cake cutting and Priya pulling me aside to show me photos of the new car Scott had just bought her. What I did not make it through was the conversation I overheard in the hallway near the coat check at 8:47 in the evening. I had stepped out to call my assistant. There was a contract renewal I needed to sign off on before the end of the business day on the West Coast, and I was standing in the alcove near the restrooms when I heard my mother and Courtney's mother talking around the corner. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just there and they didn't know it. I feel terrible seating her back there, Courtney's mother, a woman named Linda I'd spoken to exactly twice, was saying. "Don't," my mother said. "It would have been awkward. The head table is for people Nathan actually has things in common with. Accomplished people. It would have been uncomfortable for her." A pause. "She seems sweet," Linda said. "She is," my mother said. "She's a good girl. She just never really amounted to anything. You know how it is. Every family has one." Every family has one. I stood in that alcove for a long moment after they walked away. My phone was still in my hand. I had a contract to sign. I had 57 employees. I had a company worth more than anything my mother had ever touched in her life. And I was the one who hadn't amounted to anything. I finished my call. I signed the contract. I went back to table 11 and sat down and thought very carefully about what I wanted to do next. What I did next surprised even me. I went and found the general manager. His name is Tom, and he's worked this property for 9 years. And when he saw me crossing the lobby toward him, he straightened his jacket the way people do when they suddenly remember who they're talking to. "Ms. Ellison," he said, "I didn't know you were attending tonight." "It's a family thing," I said. "I need a small favor." He nodded. "Whatever I needed." I told him. His eyebrows went up slightly, but he's a professional, so they came back down. "Of course," he said. "Give me 10 minutes." I went back to the reception. I got a glass of water. I watched Nathan and Courtney dancing with guests and thought about how he'd cried at the altar and how that part of him, at least, was real. I wasn't angry at him exactly. I was tired. There's a difference. At 9:15, Tom came to find me near the edge of the dance floor and nodded once. "Ready." I walked to the microphone. Nathan's best man had already done his toast. The maid of honor had done hers. The microphone was technically available, and no one moved to stop me when I picked it up, because in the chaos of a wedding reception, someone walking to a microphone reads as authorized. "Hi," I said. "I'm Ren, Nathan's sister. I know the formal toasts are done, and I'll keep this short." People turned. My mother looked up from her table. Nathan blinked. "I want to say congratulations to my brother and Courtney," I said. Genuinely, I saw Nathan's face when she walked down that aisle today, and I have never been more certain that two people belong together. Some applause. Nathan smiled a little uncertain. "I also want to take a moment," I said, "because I think tonight is actually a good time for a few things to be said out loud." I looked at my mother. I kept my voice completely even. "Our family values achievement. We always have. And I've spent a lot of years understanding that I don't fit the version of achievement that this family recognizes. I paused. I want to correct that tonight, because I think it's time. The room was very quiet now. I left college at 19 to take a contract with a software company. My family thought I was throwing my life away. What I was actually doing was beginning to build a company called Lumen Systems. I watched my father's face. He'd stopped chewing. We closed a Series C round last year at a valuation of $1.8 billion. I hold 43%. A beat. I also have a real estate portfolio that my attorney advised me not to discuss in detail at family gatherings, but I'll say this much. The Glenview Grand is part of it. I own the building we're standing in right now. Complete silence. Nathan's mouth was open. Priya had her hand pressed flat on the table like she needed something solid. My mother looked like someone had just switched off the lights behind her eyes. Richard, Courtney's father, was staring at me from across the room. I met his eyes for exactly 1 second and then looked away because I hadn't done this for him. "I'm not saying this to embarrass anyone," I said. "I meant that. I'm saying it because I am 31 years old and I am tired of being the cautionary tale at my own family's table. I love Nathan. I love all of you. And I think love should probably include the truth." I set the microphone down gently. "Congratulations, Nathan. Courtney, I hope you build something extraordinary together." I walked off the small stage area and back through the tables, and the room stayed quiet long enough that I could hear my own footsteps. Then slowly, a few people started clapping. Then more. Then Shannon from table 11 stood up, which was genuinely unexpected. And then a few of Nathan's colleagues followed. And by the time I reached the edge of the dance floor, there was a full applause happening, which I had not planned for and which made my throat do something complicated. My brother reached me first. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just looked at me with this expression I hadn't seen on his face since we were kids. Like he was trying to recalibrate everything he thought he knew. "Ren," he said finally. "What? How long?" 11 years, I said. He ran his hand over his face. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at him steadily. "I tried to, once. When I left school, you told me I didn't understand how the real world worked." He had nothing for that. He just nodded slowly, like someone accepting a consequence they knew they'd earned. Courtney hugged me. She is a better person than the wedding seating arrangement suggested, and I appreciated it. My father found me next. He stood in front of me with his hands in his pockets, and for a moment he looked very old, which he is. Actually, he just usually doesn't let it show. "I didn't know," he said. "I know," I said. "I should have." He stopped, started again. "I should have paid more attention." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was the closest thing to one I'd heard from him in 11 years, and I decided to take it. My mother took longer. She found me near the coat check at the end of the night, when most of the guests had filtered out and the catering staff was quietly stacking chairs. She looked the way she looks when she's lost an argument. Not defeated, exactly, but recalculating. "You never said anything," she said. It came out almost like an accusation. "You never asked," I said. "You assumed. There's a difference." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I said something tonight, about you, before I knew." "I know what you said." She looked at the marble floor. The marble I'd selected from a catalog in a conference room 2 years ago while on a call with 3 other investors. "I'm sorry," she said. My mother does not apologize. I have heard her do it fewer times than I can count on one hand. I could tell it cost her something and I didn't want to be cruel about it. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. On the way home, I drove down Lakeshore Drive with the windows cracked even though it was October and cold because I needed air. Chicago at night is still my favorite version of the city. The lake going dark and infinite to the right of me, the skyline holding itself up on the left. Everything lit and enormous and indifferent in the best possible way. I thought about the girl who had stood in her parents' kitchen 11 years ago and tried to explain why she was leaving school, and how no one in that kitchen had believed in what she was describing. I thought about how she'd done it anyway, not to prove them wrong. I want to be clear about that, because the point was never to prove them wrong. The point was always just to build the thing. The thing was worth building. I thought about my brother's face when I said the number, the way it rearranged him. I thought about what my mother had said in that hallway. Every family has one, and how she'd meant it as a diminishment, and how it was actually just the truth. Every family has one. The one who goes sideways, who doesn't follow the path, who makes choices no one understands. Sometimes those people disappear into lives smaller than they wanted. And sometimes they quietly build something that ends up owning the room everyone else is standing in. I don't think I'm better than my family. I want to say that clearly. I have not led a perfect life. I have worked too much and missed things I should have shown up for and made decisions that I'd take back if I could. I have been lonely in ways that success doesn't fix, and I have sat in very expensive places feeling very empty, and I know that $1 billion valuation means nothing about your worth as a human being. But I do think I deserve to be seen, not celebrated, just seen. And I think the people who love you are supposed to try to see you, even when what they're looking at doesn't match the picture they had in their heads. Nathan called me the following Monday. We talked for an hour and a half, which is longer than we've talked in probably 5 years combined. He asked questions, real ones. I answered them. At the end of the call, he said, "I want to understand this better. Can we have dinner?" We had dinner. We've had dinner 4 times since then. Priya texted me the day after the wedding. I had no idea. Can we talk? We're still working on it. She's trying. I'm trying to let her. My father sent me an email with no subject line. It said, "I looked up Lumen Systems. I read about the Series C. I'm proud of you." I should have said that a long time ago. It's not everything, but it's something, and I've learned that something is where you start. My mother and I have coffee once a month now. She doesn't talk about Priya's car or Nathan's cases. She asks about my work. She is learning how to ask questions instead of making statements, which is, I think, the hardest thing she's ever done. I still drive the Honda Civic. I still wear the same rotation of jeans and plain sweaters. The building is still mine, and Tom still straightens his jacket when he sees me. And the marble in the lobby is still the one I picked. But the thing I keep coming back to, the thing I think about when I'm driving along the lake at night, is that the truth, when you finally let it into the room, takes up exactly as much space as it always deserved. Not more, not less. It was always there. We were just the last ones to say it out loud. There's a moment I keep coming back to, not the microphone, not the silence after, not my mother's face. It's the drive home. October air through the cracked window, the lake going dark on my right, and the strange stillness of a person who has just stopped carrying something very heavy for a very long time. I didn't walk into that wedding to win anything. I want to be clear about that, because I think it's easy to look at what happened and frame it as a revenge story, and it wasn't. Not really. What it was, what I think it actually was, is the moment I finally stopped protecting people from the truth at the expense of myself. That's not revenge, that's just honesty arriving late. For 11 years, I watched my family make assumptions about me and I let them, because the alternative felt like bragging, and I was raised to believe that talking about what you've built is the same as being arrogant about it. I confused humility with invisibility. Those are not the same thing. Humility is knowing that what you've accomplished doesn't make you better than anyone else. Invisibility is letting people treat you as less than you are, and calling it modesty. I think about the choices that got me to that room, not the big dramatic ones, but the small daily ones. The decision to keep learning even when no one was watching, the decision to read one more contract, take one more meeting, solve one more problem, even on the days when I was so tired I couldn't think straight. No one was grading me. No one was going to call my parents and tell them I was doing well. I had to become someone who did the work because the work mattered, not because anyone was paying attention. That's a different kind of discipline than most people build, and I don't say that proudly. I say it because I think it's the only kind that actually holds. What I know now is that integrity doesn't make noise. It just accumulates. Every decision I made in those 11 years, to build carefully, to treat my employees fairly, to give money without attaching my name to it, those decisions compounded into something, not just a company, a self, a person I actually recognized when I looked in the mirror, which is rarer than any valuation. My father's email is still in my inbox. I read it sometimes. I should have said that a long time ago. The thing is, I used to think I needed to hear that to feel okay about what I'd built. And then one day, I realized I didn't. Not because I stopped wanting his approval, but because I had already built something that stood up whether he approved of it or not. That shift, from needing to be seen to simply being, I don't know how to explain it except to say it felt like ground under my feet for the first time. Nathan and I have dinner now, real dinner, where we talk. He asked me recently what kept me going during the years when no one believed in what I was doing. I thought about it for a while before I answered. I told him, I just kept going, because the work was real, even when I wasn't. And I think that's the only thing worth knowing, not the billion-dollar number, not the building, just that, whatever you're building in the quiet, when you're seated at table 11 by people who love you and still can't see you, it's real. You're real. Keep going anyway.